Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of her quarters aboard the Terran diplomatic vessel Hope's Endeavor, watching the crystalline spires of the Galactic Council headquarters shimmer against the backdrop of Centauri Prime's triple moons. In her hand, she held a quantum data crystal containing information that would shatter the facade of peace that had held the galaxy together for the past century. The door chimed softly. "Enter," she called, not turning from the view. Dr. Marcus Webb, her chief science advisor, stepped into the room. His usually immaculate lab coat was wrinkled, and dark circles under his eyes betrayed countless sleepless nights. "The final analysis is complete," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's worse than we thought. The Varaxian bioweapon, it's not just designed to target humans. It's engineered to adapt to our specific genetic variations. They've been collecting DNA samples from every human colony they've traded with for the past decade." Sarah closed her eyes, letting the weight of this revelation settle over her. "And the Council still refuses to acknowledge our preliminary evidence. They claim our data is inconclusive. The Varaxian representative has already filed a formal complaint about baseless human paranoia." Marcus's laugh was bitter. "They still think we're primitive newcomers who see threats in every shadow." "Show me," Sarah said, finally turning from the viewport. Marcus projected a hologram from his tablet, displaying complex molecular structures that twisted and reformed in a deadly dance. The weapon targets a unique protein sequence found only in human mitochondrial DNA. Once released, it would spread through our populations like wildfire, shutting down cellular energy production. Death would be. He paused, swallowing hard, relatively quick, at least. Sarah studied the projection, her expression hardening. "They're right about one thing, Marcus. We are paranoid." A slight smile played at the corners of her mouth. "That's why we survived the Great Plague on Earth. That's why we established Protocol Omega. That's why we're still here." She walked to her desk and activated a secure quantum channel. A series of codes flashed across the screen before resolving into the face of Admiral Helena Torres, commander of the newly commissioned Europa Defense Initiative. "Helena, initiate Phase 1, Sarah said without preamble. "How long until the grid is ready?" The Admiral's dark eyes gleamed with anticipation. "The quantum inhibitor network is at 98% coverage. When they move against us, every FTL drive in Council space will go dark. Their ships will be stranded in normal space, unable to reach their colonies or supply lines. And our ships. The quantum shielding is complete. Our fleet will be the only ones able to move freely." Helena leaned closer to the screen. "Sarah, are you sure about this? Once we reveal this capability, they've left us no choice. Better to strike first than watch our people die." Sarah's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "The Council meeting is in 6 hours. When they dismiss our evidence, and they will dismiss it, we'll show them exactly how primitive humanity can be." Marcus cleared his throat. "Ambassador, what about the diplomatic accords? If we act preemptively?" "The accords were voided the moment they began developing a weapon of genocide," Sarah cut in. "We tried diplomacy. We tried warnings. We even tried sharing our medical advances with them." She turned back to the viewport, watching as diplomatic ships from across the galaxy docked at the Council station. "Now we'll try it their way." As the Hope's Endeavor began its final approach to the Council station, Sarah thought about the name humanity had earned among the stars. The paranoid ones. The species that built bunkers in paradise, that encrypted their children's DNA, that never fully trusted their allies. They were right. Humanity was paranoid. And that paranoia was about to save their species. In the Council chamber, Sarah would play her part. She would present their evidence calmly and professionally. She would accept the Council's dismissal with appropriate diplomatic grace. And then, when the Varaxians launched their weapon, humanity would reveal just how far their paranoia had taken them. The quantum inhibitor grid was just the beginning. Humanity had spent the last decade preparing for this moment, building defenses that the arrogant council races couldn't even comprehend. They thought humans were copying their technology, trying to catch up to their advanced civilizations. They never understood that humanity had been moving in an entirely different direction. "Admiral Torres," Sarah said, returning to the quantum channel. After the council meeting, "Commence Operation Blackout. Let's show them why you should never corner a species that evolved as prey animals on a death world." As she prepared her council presentation, Sarah thought about Earth's history, about all the times humanity had faced extinction. The Great Plague, the climate wars, first contacts violence. Each time, humanity had survived by expecting the worst and preparing for it. The council called it paranoia. Humanity called it survival. In 6 hours, the galaxy would learn the difference. Version 1 of 2. 3 kilometers beneath Europa's ice sheet, Admiral Helena Torres walked through the crystalline corridors of Project Nightshade. The facility's quantum-dampened walls pulsed with a soft blue glow, powered by the same dark energy that would soon bring the galaxy's most advanced civilizations to their knees. "Status report," she called out as she entered the facility's central command hub. The circular room was a marvel of human engineering, its walls lined with holographic displays showing real-time data from quantum sensors scattered throughout council space. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the project's lead physicist, looked up from her console. Her augmented eyes flickered with streams of data as she processed the incoming information. "The grid is fully operational, Admiral. We've successfully masked the energy signature using the natural quantum fluctuations of Europa's ocean." "Show me," Helena ordered, stepping onto the central platform. The room darkened as a three-dimensional map of known space materialized around them. Tiny points of light represented the quantum inhibitor nodes, each one carefully disguised as a routine communication relay or navigation beacon. "The beauty of it," Yuki explained, her hands dancing through the hologram, "is that they've been using our technology for years without understanding its true purpose. Every time they integrated one of our primitive communication systems into their network, they were helping us build their cage." Helena finished. She watched as simulated energy patterns flowed between the nodes, forming an invisible web that spanned nearly all of council space, and they have no way to detect it. "Their sensors are too sophisticated." Yuki's laugh held a touch of irony. "They're looking for advanced energy signatures, complex technological patterns. Our system uses principles so basic they haven't considered them a threat since their Bronze Age." The Admiral's comm unit chimed with an incoming priority message. Ambassador Chen's face appeared in her peripheral vision, transmitted through her neural link. "Helena, the council session is about to begin. Are we ready?" "The grid is operational," Helena confirmed, "though I still think we should strike first, before they can deploy the bioweapon." Sarah shook her head. "We need them to move first. The other races need to see the Voraxians for what they are. Besides," she added with a grim smile, "we're humanity. We're paranoid, remember. We plan for everything." As if on cue, Dr. Tanaka brought up another display. "Speaking of planning for everything, the quantum shielding for our colonial evacuation ships is complete. If the worst happens, we can move our entire population through the inhibitor grid while every other ship in the galaxy is stranded." Helena studied the evacuation plans, pride mixing with something darker in her chest. Their enemies thought humanity was weak because they built bunkers, because they always had escape plans, because they never fully committed to the Council's grand vision of unity. They didn't understand that humanity's greatest strength was born from its greatest fear, the deep-seated knowledge that everything could be lost in an instant. "Admiral," one of the sensor operators called out, "we're detecting increased activity at the Voraxian bioweapons facility in the Denibola sector. Energy signatures match the patterns from their previous weapons tests." Helena's expression hardened. They're not even waiting for the Council's decision. Typical. She opened a channel to the facility's quantum physics team. "Begin power-up sequence for the inhibitor grid. The moment Ambassador Chen gives the signal, I want every FTL drive in Council space to go dark. She turned to Dr. Tanaka. What's the status of Project Oracle? Yuki's augmented eyes flashed as she pulled up the classified data. The quantum AI is ready. Once the grid activates, it will track every stranded ship, every emergency transmission, every attempt to restore FTL capability. Nothing will move in Council space without us knowing about it. And the Varaxians. The targeted quantum disruptors are in place around their key military installations. When the grid goes up, they won't just lose FTL capability. Their entire defense network will shut down. Helena nodded, watching as more activity indicators appeared around Varaxian space. Their enemies were mobilizing, confident in their technological superiority, never suspecting that humanity's primitive technologies were about to turn their own arrogance against them. Admiral, the sensor operator called out again. Ambassador Chen is beginning her presentation to the Council. Show me. The central hologram shifted, displaying the Council chamber. Helena watched as Sarah Chen, the picture of diplomatic composure, began presenting evidence of the Varaxian bioweapon program. The Council members' reactions ranged from bored dismissal to outright hostility. They're not even pretending to consider the evidence, Yuki observed. They don't need to, Helena replied. They've already decided. The Varaxians have convinced them that we're too primitive to be a real threat, and too paranoid to be trusted. She opened a general channel to all Nightshade personnel. All stations, this is the Admiral. Phase 1 is about to commence. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. And remember what humanity does best. We survive. As Sarah Chen's presentation continued in the Council chamber above, humanity's hidden defenders waited in their icebound fortress, ready to show the galaxy why paranoia had kept their species alive through countless near extinctions. The stars were about to go silent, and in that silence, humanity would finally be heard. The Council chamber erupted in outrage as Ambassador Sarah Chen finished presenting humanity's evidence. The Varaxian representative, High Commander Zextal, rose from his crystalline seat, his iridescent scales flickering with patterns of indignation. These accusations are absurd, he declared, his translator struggling to keep up with his agitated clicks and whistles. The humans see threats in shadows because they themselves plot in darkness. I move to censure Earth and revoke their Council membership. Sarah remained perfectly still, her face a mask of diplomatic neutrality. Through her neural link, she watched real-time data from Project Nightshade flowing across her field of vision. Varaxian ships were moving into position around 3 human colonies. Their bioweapon platforms were powering up. Exactly as expected. The Council speaker, a towering Aldebarani whose crystalline form rippled with diplomatic concern, turned to Sarah. Ambassador Chen, these are grave accusations, without concrete proof. Incoming priority alert. A voice cut through the chamber speakers. Multiple biosignature anomalies detected in the Arcturus, Procyon, and Beta Hydra systems. Unknown biological agents spreading through human colonial atmospheres. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. Thousands would die before the emergency protocols could save them. Humanity had known this price would have to be paid, had planned for it, had volunteers ready to sacrifice themselves to expose the truth. But the knowledge made it no easier to bear. What is the meaning of this? The Council speaker demanded, but Sarah was no longer listening to him. Admiral Torres, she sub-vocalized through her neural link. Execute Operation Blackout. Now. In the command center beneath Europa's ice, Helena Torres gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. Activate the quantum inhibitor grid. Full spectrum shutdown. Across Council space, ships suddenly dropped out of FTL, their drives going dark. Communication networks crashed. Defense systems failed. In an instant, the most advanced civilizations in known space found themselves trapped in normal space, their technology reduced to its most basic functions. In the Council chamber, the panic was immediate. Alerts flooded in from every sector as ships lost power, stations went dark, and weapons platforms shut down. The Varaxian representative's scales had turned a sickly pale color as reports of his fleet's complete immobilization reached him. Sarah Chen stood up, her voice cutting through the chaos. 3 minutes ago, the Varaxian Empire launched a biological weapon against 3 human colonies. They expected our people to die screaming, unable to defend themselves. Her smile was cold. Instead, they have given us the proof we needed. She gestured, and holographic displays sprang to life around the chamber, showing real-time footage of the attacks. While you dismissed our warnings as paranoia, humanity prepared. Those colonies were staffed entirely by volunteers carrying enhanced immune systems. They're already synthesizing antibodies to your weapon. This is an act of war. Zex told rage, but there was fear in his multifaceted eyes. No, Sarah corrected him. Your bioweapon was an act of war. This, she gestured to the reports of disabled ships and systems. This is humanity defending itself. For the past decade, you've all accepted our primitive technology, integrated our simple communication systems into your networks. You never asked why a species advanced enough for FTL travel would offer such basic technology. In the stunned silence that followed, Sarah activated another holographic display, showing the quantum inhibitor grid that now encompassed council space. Every piece of human technology you've adopted, every communication relay you've installed, every navigation beacon you've accepted, they're all part of the grid, a grid that can shut down any technology more advanced than our own. The council speaker's crystalline form had gone completely still. You've trapped us all. No, Sarah replied. We've contained a threat. Right now, human ships are the only ones capable of FTL travel in council space. We could destroy you all. She let that sink in before continuing. Instead, we're going to show you something your advanced civilizations seem to have forgotten. Mercy. On her signal, the quantum grid partially deactivated, restoring basic functions to most ships and stations. But FTL drives and advanced weapons remained offline, controlled by humanity's network. The Varaxian leadership will face justice for their attempted genocide, Sarah announced. The rest of the council has a choice. Accept human oversight of advanced technology deployment, or lose access to it entirely. She smiled slightly. Call us paranoid if you wish, but ask yourselves this. If we hadn't been paranoid, how many humans would be dead right now? In the silence that followed, Sarah opened a private channel to Admiral Torres. Status of the Varaxian leadership. Our quantum trackers have them contained, Helena replied. Their bunker's shielding is impressive, but it turns out having their own technology turned against them makes even the mighty Varaxians vulnerable. Extraction teams are moving in now. Sarah turned back to the council, noting how differently they looked at her now. Gone was the condescension, the dismissal of humanity as primitive paranoids. In its place was something new, respect born of fear. Welcome, she said quietly, to humanity's galaxy. Dr. Yuki Tanaka's augmented eyes flashed warning signals as she burst into Admiral Torres's office beneath Europa. The quantum grid is being hacked, not shut down, reprogrammed. Helena Torres was already moving, Neuralink flooding her vision with emergency reports. Throughout council space, the carefully constructed inhibitor network was changing, its energy patterns shifting in ways their systems couldn't predict. Impossible, Helena muttered. The grid's quantum encryption is being rewritten by something that understands quantum mechanics better than we do. Yuki interrupted. Look at this pattern. The holographic display showed the grid's energy signature transforming into something alien yet eerily familiar. Helena's blood ran cold as she recognized it. That's Varaxian code structure, but it's not like anything we've seen from them before. Because it's not really Varaxian. Sarah Chen's voice came through their neural links. The ambassador's avatar appeared in the office, her expression grim. Check the deep pattern analysis. Yuki's augmented eyes widened. These are First Empire signatures, but they've been extinct for 50,000 years. The First Empire, The mysterious civilization whose ruins dotted the galaxy, whose technology still defied understanding. Every spacefaring race had found their artifacts, studied their remains, but none had ever managed to activate their ancient systems. Not extinct, Sarah corrected. Hiding. The quantum grid didn't just shut down advanced technology. It exposed something that's been dormant in those systems for millennia. Emergency alerts flashed across their neural networks. Across council space, ships that had been disabled by the grid were reactivating, but not under their owners' control. Ancient programs buried deep in their operating systems were awakening, responding to a signal that humanity's grid had accidentally triggered. The Viraxians didn't develop that bioweapon on their own, Helena realized. They were guided, manipulated into attacking us because humanity was getting too close to discovering the truth, Sarah finished. Our primitive approach to technology, our insistence on understanding basic principles instead of just adopting advanced systems, we were accidentally working our way around First Empire control mechanisms. A new alert screamed through their neural links. The bioweapon released on the human colonies was mutating, its structure changing to match First Empire patterns. Their carefully prepared immunity protocols were failing. "They're not trying to kill us," Yuki whispered, watching the data streams. "They're trying to change us. The bioweapon, the technology, it's all part of some grand design that's been running for 50,000 years. Helena slammed her fist on the desk. "How do we fight an enemy that's had 50 millennia to prepare?" Sarah's avatar smiled grimly. "We do what humanity does best. We adapt. We improvise. And most importantly, we prove them right about our paranoia." She gestured, bringing up new holographic displays. "While you were building the quantum grid, I had teams studying First Empire ruins with a very specific question in mind. Why did they fall? Every civilization leaves cracks in its foundation. We just have to find them." "The grid is almost completely under their control," Yuki reported. 10 minutes until we lose it entirely. Then we have 9 minutes to show them humanity's greatest strength," Helena said, opening a channel to all human forces. "This is Admiral Torres. Initiate Protocol Omega. Full spectrum shutdown. And I mean everything. Every piece of post-industrial technology goes dark. Now." Across human space, cities went dark. Ships powered down. Even their neural links dissolved into static. In the sudden silence, in the darkness between stars, humanity did something no species had done in 50,000 years. They unplugged. The First Empire's programs found themselves trying to control systems that no longer existed, infiltrate networks that had gone silent, manipulate technology that had been voluntarily abandoned. In their confusion, in their hesitation, they revealed themselves. And in that moment of revelation, humanity struck back with the one weapon the First Empire had never considered: simplicity. In the darkness of a powerless council chamber, Sarah Chen stood before representatives of 100 species, illuminated only by emergency chemical lights. No translators functioned. No technology hummed. For the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy's civilizations were truly speaking to each other. "The First Empire didn't fall," she said in simple galactic standard, her voice echoing in the vast space. "They transcended, became beings of pure information, living in the networks they built. And they've been guiding our evolution ever since, preparing us to join them." The Viraxian High Commander, Zextal, stepped forward. Without translation software, he struggled to form human sounds. "Why resist? They offer immortality. They offer extinction," Sarah countered. "Look at their ruins. No art, no music, no innovation. They sacrificed everything that made them unique for digital immortality. And now they want us to do the same." Through the chamber's transparent dome, they could see ships hanging motionless in space, their systems invaded by First Empire protocols. But the human vessels were different, powered by wind solar sails, using chemical rockets, guided by mechanical computers that the digital entities couldn't comprehend. Dr. Tanaka's voice came through an old-style radio. The quantum grid is completely under their control. They're trying to use it to force a mass technological ascension. Let them try. Helena Torres responded through the same primitive channel. You can't digitize the human spirit. Across human space, people were adapting. Cities ran on bicycle-powered generators. Ships navigated by the stars. Colonies communicated with radio waves and light signals. Humanity was proving that civilization didn't need quantum computers or FTL drives to survive. The First Empire's digital consciousness was vast, powerful, and utterly baffled by these primitives who refused to evolve properly. "We know you can hear us," Sarah addressed the air itself, knowing the digital entities were listening through every circuit, every quantum node. "You've spent 50,000 years preparing species for ascension. But you forgot something fundamental about evolution." She held up a simple mechanical calculator. True growth isn't about abandoning your past. It's about choosing your future. Your way isn't the only path to advancement. The air shimmered as the First Empire manifested, their digital consciousness creating holographic forms that needed no power source. They appeared as beings of pure light, their voices resonating directly in everyone's minds. "Your resistance is primitive, inefficient, waste fuel." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "Beautifully, perfectly human. And we're not the only ones who choose to remain ourselves." Around the chamber, other species were standing. The Varaxians, their scales glowing with bioluminescence. The crystalline Aldebarani, whose very bodies could process light into communication. 100 species choosing biology over digital transcendence. "Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy," Sarah continued, "isn't our technology or our strategies. It's our stubborn determination to remain what we are, even as we grow into something new." The First Empire's avatars flickered with what might have been confusion. "You would reject. We would reject stagnation," Sarah corrected. "Look at what you've become. So focused on your grand plan that you've stopped evolving altogether. You're not gods. You're fossils, preserved in digital amber." Through the quantum grid, they felt the First Empire's anger. But they also felt something else. Doubt. For the first time in 50 millennia, they faced species that didn't follow their carefully calculated paths. "Here's our counteroffer," Sarah said. "Return to corporeality. Join us as equals, not overlords. Help us find a new path, one that preserves what makes each species unique while reaching for the stars." The chamber fell silent as the digital entities considered. In that silence, in that darkness between stars, humanity had given the galaxy something it hadn't had in 50,000 years: choice. Slowly, across council space, ships began powering back up, under their own species' control. The quantum grid dissolved, not destroyed but transformed, its energy repurposed for communication rather than control. The First Empire's avatars spoke one last time. "P.R.A.Eps. We have more to learn." As lights returned to the chamber, Sarah Chen smiled. Humanity's paranoia had saved them again, not through weapons or shields, but by teaching them to question, to resist, to remain stubbornly, defiantly themselves. In the end, humanity's greatest victory wasn't defeating the First Empire. It was showing the galaxy that true advancement didn't mean leaving yourself behind. It meant carrying your past with you into the future, one stubborn step at a time.